Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Michael, and I'm exploring all the different ways that stationery can bring me joy. Today is a very exciting day because it was the release day for Taylor Swift's new album, The Life of a Showgirl. And if you will indulge me in kind of combining two of my interests, this is not a music account, but I am going to be using my stationery to talk about music I enjoy. I would love to journal about the album and how I felt about it and my feelings about the different songs. And when I sat down to do that, I thought about just dipping into my daily journal, my Hobonichi Techo A6, and in my entry today just saying, hey, the song dropped and here's my ranking. But then I realized that because, this doesn't have a lot of space as a smaller notebook, there are other things that happened today, and that was a very, very specific thing to be journaling about. And I remembered that I had this notebook, which is a Leuchtturm, I believe in the, let me just figure out, the Paperback B6 size. And I had used this kind of as a bullet journal, but then as I collected some traveler's notebooks and got some inserts going for specific things, the things I was bullet journaling in this notebook about kind of became their own notebooks in my system, my ecosystem, if you will. And so this kind of dropped off in use. But as I was thinking about writing about my thoughts on this new album, I remembered that in this journal, when Lady Gaga dropped Mayhem, I put my ranking of how I felt about the songs immediately, as an entry in this bullet journal. And then later on, when I wanted to kind of discuss a little more about the album, I had an entry in here as well. And then I realized that there are no rules when it comes to journaling, and I might have some things that I want to talk a little bit more about that aren't, my daily journal entries, that I could use this kind of as almost an overflow journal. I have a really specific thing I have feelings about that I want to get down. Maybe I want to junk journal a little more than my personal journal will allow, and so this can kind of be a catch-all for extra things that I want to write about that don't necessarily have a specific place. Like, it's not a book I'm reading, so it's not going to go into my reading journal. It's not about a movie, so it's not going to go into my film journal. It's just, I have some thoughts about what's going on in politics, or a new album that's dropped, or kind of a catch-all for some things that I'm not going to start a new system for. Like, I like music, but I don't think I'm going to have a specific music journal. But I could, if some lyrics, come to me, or a poem I really like, I want to write down, or I just want to, draw something or insert something that's not going to go in my daily journal, I can kind of use this as my catch-all for that. And so I'm really excited to pop into a new spread here to kind of explore my feelings, my review of the new Taylor Swift album, The Life of a Showgirl, and how I feel about the songs, etc. And I'm going to use some stickers and ephemera and washi tape and my fountain pens to kind of create a spread to discuss that. And I'm excited to kind of have this back in rotation for this kind of a purpose. So I am going to start gathering my materials to get this spread started. I figure for the main spread creation, I'm going to kind of speed it up so you can see me finding which papers and ephemera and things I want to use to create the base spread, and then we'll come back together in real time to talk about my ranking of the songs and whatnot. So get yourself a nice little beverage, maybe a treat, pull up a task at your desk that you can do, and we can kind of create this spread together, and then I can share my thoughts about the album. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm really excited, so let's jump into that portion right now. So I knew I wanted to create kind of a collection of shapes to kind of mimic the chopped up photo look of the promotional material and album cover. So I found some paper to do that. I then counted out the letters in The Life of a Showgirl because I realized I had these rub-on letters from Traveler's Notebook or Traveler's Company, and I decided to rub them onto this purple paper, and I cut the strips so that it would be perfectly centered, and then I just kind of went to town transferring the letters onto the paper. Usually I'm really terrible at this, but I got every letter on the first try, and it must be the magic of Taylor Swift that allowed it to come out so well. So my thought was to kind of put these words on the purple paper, then cut up each word onto its own mini strip that I could kind of put dispersed through the cut up shapes that, again, I wanted to mimic the kind of shattered photo images of the album and promotional materials. I found some of these like scrapbook pages that gave off Life of a Showgirl vibes, wallpaper patterns in red and grays and greens, which are a lot of the colors used in the album materials. I started laying things out. I realized I'd rather have Showgirl on the same side, and then I used my tape runner to start gluing the pages down and trimming the edges so that they didn't go off. It was kind of difficult to get this layering to happen in the same way because I would have to figure out which was the bottommost piece of paper, glue that, and then kind of try to layer the papers back on top. It didn't look exactly as the way I planned it, but because it's just shapes jutting randomly, I think it ended up looking as good as I wanted it to and kind of met the vision that I was going for. Once I got all of these taped down and the excess trimmed off, I then wanted to add some glitter and reflective elements to mimic the glittery orange of the album cover. And so I had this washi tape that had this like metallic shimmer, and I used some orange washi tape with it to layer behind some of the words in The Life of a Showgirl. And I really liked the way that kind of turned out on the title, and so I added some of that washi to the right side as well. I had these gold and silver stars. I had purple sparkly hearts and orange sparkly hearts from a Pipstick sticker sheet, and I realized this top right corner looked a little bare, so I added some of that reflective washi, some orange washi sticker, and created this base to be able to journal on. Alright, welcome back. My spread is ready to go for writing. Now, because one of the big themes of some of the promotional material for this album, there's been the orange, but there have been some promotional materials that also have a purple lean, hence this paper I used. I really would love to use this Purple Pizzazz shimmer ink to write the titles of my ranking. I don't have this currently inked in a pen, and I do have my Sailor Hocoro dip pens, but I can use these. But I have a new tool that recently arrived that I am very excited to use. Came from Jet Pens, and that is the Kakimori dip pen. And so I got the handle. I believe this is, yes, the walnut handle or nib holder. And I have the brass Kakimori nib. Pop that in. Lovely. And so my hope is that with this, I'll be able to write the titles. I've never used a Kakimori nib or dip pen. I've seen people on YouTube use them, but this is my first time using it. So I'm going to take this shimmer ink, and I'm hoping because I can remove this and clean it out, the shimmer ink is not going to clog. Now I'm worried. I don't want to ruin this as I've just received it. And I'm noticing that when you take the nib out, there's an inner chamber, but the ink is really going in through these slits in the nib. Okay, I'm gonna err on the side of caution. I'm glad I got to show this to everyone, and perhaps in a future video I can practice using this for writing in my ink swatching. But for now, maybe I should stick to the Sailor Hocoro because I know how to clean that more properly. So sorry for the stationary tool tease, but I do want to make sure I use things correctly. That's the Fude nib. I think I'm gonna go with a medium just because I want the shimmer to shine through. So pop that in. And I will use this dip pen with this purple pizzazz ink to write the titles, and then I have this Lamy Safari. I forget the name of this colorway. Hold on. I think it's just cream, but really quickly reference. Cozy Cream. And I currently have this inked with Lennon Toolbar's Bitter Orange Tea. And I think the purple and the orange are going to go well with this Life of a Showgirl spread. So purple for the title. And then in orange, I'm going to put one of my favorite lines from the song underneath the title. Before I jump into this though, I have yet to use fountain pens in this notebook, and so I decided that this last page is going to be a pen test page. I've gone ahead already and written pen tests in the Lennon toolbar with the Lamy. No bleed through. And I'm just going to really quickly do the same with this purple pizzazz. So I'm gonna set this up to the side. Do a little dip of this ink. My purple pen test. And definitely some ghosting, but no bleed through. And the shimmer is coming out as it's drying. Lovely. So I'm going to really quickly, I realized that I did not set myself up for success because I don't have some water in case I need to rinse off this dip pen. So I'm going to go get that and come back to get into the writing portion of this. I'm going to just use some blotting paper. Yeah, that looks great. So I will be right back. All right, welcome back. And I am now ready to write in my ranking of the songs on the album The Life of a Showgirl. Again, I got my purple pizzazz ink, and because I know I shouldn't dip my pen directly into the bottle, I have one of these like medicine measuring cups that I've cleaned and used for inking when I have a dip pen now. So I'm just going to give this a good shake and use my dropper to put some ink in this little cup. So I am excited to kind of give my ranking. This is my initial impression. I've listened to the album maybe 4 times, 5 times in a row today over the course of the day. And, you know, these are my initial thoughts. What's really interesting about most albums is that I always have an initial thought, and then as time goes on and I listen to it more, things shift. And so this is why I really like to do this initial list, because I can see how my opinion changes over time. So let's start with my number 1 song at the moment, which is the first single and the first track, The Fate of Ophelia. This is probably a given since I am an English teacher, but I love the illusion. I think it's a really fun song. I just enjoy hearing it every time I go back to the beginning of the album, and I think it's just really lovely, and it's a lovely way to express how someone has brought joy and love into your life, to say that they've saved you from the fate of this tragic love that perhaps you thought was where you were headed. Especially if you think about in Tortured Poets Department, she talks about the prophecy and how she really just wants someone to rewrite her fate. And so I think this is a lovely first single. And my favorite line from it is, "But love was a cold bed full of scorpions." Again, English teacher preference here, but I love this allusion to also Macbeth. "Oh, full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife." And whether that was intentional or not, it just makes me think of all of the different plays that I enjoy by Shakespeare and teaching them with students. And I just really love that line as a way to describe Ophelia and how she felt in the play Hamlet by referencing a different play. My second rank might be a controversial choice, and I have not done a lot of research into if this is actually a diss track to Charlie XCX. It seems like it is, and whether or not that is valid, but I just really love the sound of Actually Romantic. I love this grunge girl, whole Weezer kind of vibe of that song. When Tortured Poets Department came out, I really felt that it was almost, the lyrics almost were like emo songs that I grew up listening to that were just produced to be more pop sounding, and I almost wished that Taylor had done kind of like an emo album, especially considering the subject matter of a lot of that music. And not that, grunge Weezer is emo, but I do appreciate sonically her doing something different. And I really like the repetition of the line, "No man has ever loved me like you do." And again, whether or not this is directed at a particular person, and if that is even a sentiment that should be directed at them, as a song, I just find it really, really fun to listen to. The distortion, the like talking into the microphone over it, something about it really scratches my ear in the best way possible, and I just have so much fun listening to that song. In the same vein, I really, really love as my number 3 so far, the song Wood. That song starts off and you would think you're listening to like the Jackson 5 or some Motown funk like album. It's such an interesting beginning of a song and like sonic vibe for her. And I love the play on words. I love the double entendres. I just think it's so fun. And like, what a way to express how lucky you feel to be with a person and also be kind of cheeky about it. And I just, my favorite line is when she says, I ain't gotta. And then there's that pause and she says, knock on wood. The way she says that line, just overall, like, such an interesting song, and I really, really love it. I mean, definitely an earworm. She's being weird, and I'm here for it. My number 4 so far is Opalite. It's just such a fun, upbeat song. I love the sentiment again, this idea of like somebody coming into your life, and even though things can be negative, realizing that you can choose how to alter your perception in a way to try and see the positive even when things aren't going as well as they can, and how somebody can help you to do that, help you to rethink the way you view things and your perception, and they can like lift you up even when you think you can't, right? Be lifted in that way. And that's why I love the line, you had to make your own sunshine. I just think it's a lovely way to view a person and to say like, even in the worst times, you can make the sun shine through. And now my sky is opalite because of you and the way that you view things. And it's just very, very lovely. Number 5. Didn't expect a song with this title to be so emotional and to be so beautiful in its messaging and the way the story is told through the song, but Ruin the Friendship. Oh. Also apologize because New York is New Yorking right now. I don't know if you can hear that helicopter in the background. This song, when she released the track list, this went a completely different way than I thought it was going to be, considering the title. Such a beautiful story of regret and how things are much more fleeting than we think they are. I mean, the song ends on such a somber note about not being able to say the things you wish you could say or do the things you wish you could do because, someone has passed. And I just, it was very, very touching. And I like the line in here when she says, and my advice is always answer the question. Don't leave things unsaid. Don't leave questions unasked. Don't have any regrets because every moment could be your last. And it was a very beautiful, touching song. And continuing on the vein of the more ballady type emotional songs, my number 6 is Eldest Daughter. Taylor knows how to really pull at the feels, and this was a very folklore-esque, Evermore-esque style of a song. But I just really loved the confessional nature of almost like a song pulled out from her diary. And I loved the line in here, I learned cautious discretion. As we grow up, we start to guard ourselves, start to hide parts of ourselves. And that really spoke to me, as I'm sure it does to many people, that we're so free when we're very, very young, but then people's opinions or views or things they say start to make us kind of box some things away, and to be careful with what you share and how you express yourself. And I just really, really loved that sentiment in this song. Number 7 is the song Honey. Same kind of confessional idea that really resonated with me, but more of a critique on society, like the different times or ways she's been called honey. I also love the irony, almost like ruin the friendship. Like you think it's going to be, ruin the friendship is going to be about some kind of conflict, but really it's about the conflict with us against time and inevitability. And honey, you think is going to be like a sweet song, and it is because she appreciates now the person who calls her honey, but she goes through all of these instances of being called honey or sweetheart in a way that wasn't appreciated, but now that person has flipped the script, like the systems of patriarchy or the way that men treat women sometimes, and she didn't appreciate. Now she can appreciate it in a different way because it's coming from a person whose intentions are full of love, right? And my favorite line from that song is, you could be my forever nightstand. Like, I would like to be with you forever, but in a very fun play on words, like, a one night stand, a forever nightstand. This person makes things fresh, even in the familiarity of their long-term relationship. And I thought that was really, really cute. Next are a couple of songs that are a little more on the theme of the life of a showgirl. They tend to be more about, like, creating a critique of fame or celebrity or the notion of being somebody in the public eye. And I think that I'm kind of listing them in order of like how much I enjoy them sonically as a song. And I move into this second or lower half of the list. It's not that I don't enjoy these as much as the top ones. These just either were true bops to me or just had more emotional resonance. And I do like this peeling back the layers of what it is to be celebrity, but I just didn't find them to be as strong. as the top 7 before. And the top one of that, though, I would think at my number 8 is Elizabeth Taylor. Such a fun song to listen to. Like the first 3 songs of this album, when you go Fate of Ophelia, Elizabeth Taylor, Opalite, I believe that's the track list. I am here for it. I'm loving the way things sound. But on multiple listenings, just the lyrics of Elizabeth Taylor, while still fun, just didn't quite hit as deeply with me. But the line I really do love in Elizabeth Taylor, which is a very, very sharp line about this critique of celebrity, is "You're only as hot as your last hit." I really loved that. When we were listening to the album together, my husband and I were talking a little bit about our feelings of them, and I mentioned how difficult it is to compare Taylor Swift's albums to each other, because I feel like, she had 1989, which was her like magnum opus, and then, as far as a pop album is concerned, and it almost feels like we all want that level of an amazing album. And I think she achieved it with things like Folklore, In the Pandemic, and Evermore, and then, everything I think gets kind of compared back to that. And like, you're only as hot as your last hit, right? I think kind of goes back to this. And I think after the Eras tour and dropping Tortured Poets Department in the Eras tour, everyone was like, what is this next album going to be? And I think even herself is kind of commenting, she herself is commenting on this with a line like this. And this album that's about fame or being a showgirl or being celebrity, I think it's difficult to think like, how do I hit the highs I hit before and everyone expects me to? And I really like that line because I feel like it's touching upon that. Number 9, then for me, in this idea of continuing the celebrity metaphor, is the titular track, The Life of a Showgirl. I think it's a really great ending to the album. I do like Sabrina Carpenter on it. It just feels a little bit like Clara Bow, right? This idea of... And I think Clara Bow might kind of be like a proto-song for this album in some ways. And because there's that tenuous link between them, this idea of like fame and what does it mean to be a famous person, and I think it is a fun song to listen to, but I don't necessarily think as interesting lyrically as some of the other ones. Again, as I listen to it again, this might pop up to be my favorite. I did really love the line here, "Sequins are forever." I thought that was kind of a beautiful line. Next, we have the song "Cancelled." Again, along this vein of celebrity or popular, or like being in the public eye. I think "Cancelled" is a really fun song to listen to. Just checking the ink is not bleeding. Sonically, so great. It kind of harkens back a little bit to Who's Afraid of Little Old Me. And so I really do like the vibe of the song, the way it sounds. It's very Reputation coded. Because it's kind of like Who's Afraid of Little Me and it's Reputation coded, it just feels kind of, we've been in this territory before. fun to listen to, but again, as a whole, I like this album a lot, but just falling down in the ranking. And the line I really liked there was, if you can't be good, just be better at it. I like the use of the word good, better. If you can't do good, be better at it. It being bad, right? And the song kind of ends like, I can take you under my wing and show you how to be bad properly. That leads me to the next song, number 11, which for me was Father Figure. I do like the overall thought behind the song and the storytelling aspect of it and kind of taking on a different voice. It's just not my favorite on there right now. But the line, which was teased, before the album dropped, that I thought was really great was, they don't make loyalty like they used to. And so at number 12, last place, we have Wish List. Fun to listen to, just not my favorite also. The sentiment to me also is, it's nice. It's like, my wish list is to be with you, have a bunch of kids, live in a cul-de-sac, kind of a send-up of Hollywood and the way people, want to have a perfect life or what they wish for. But just, out of all the songs, definitely not my most favorite. But I really liked the line in here when she said, bring me a best friend who I think is hot. And so there is, oh no, that kind of feathered more than I would have liked it to. That's sad. My current first day ranking of the 12 songs, I think I'm going to just really quickly write out some of my overall thoughts about the album over here, kind of my review, my ranking. Maybe I'll put a little title on each side. Maybe add something here just to kind of fill up this space. And then we'll come back. All right, welcome back. So I have put some titles, the review, the ranking, written my review, and I was going to add some ephemera or something here, but my review has spilled over, so that was serendipitous. I wrote the titles in this Pentel Touch Pen, in this purple glittery color, and I wrote my review using this Pentel Energel pen in the 0.7 millimeter. It's the needle tip. Oh, I just realized they're both Pentel. Overall, really enjoyed listening to this album. I think that especially the first 3 songs right off the gate were like really, really catchy. I think that they're all fun to listen to. Just a few of them lyrically explore some things that I feel like we've explored in previous albums, so just not as captivating for me. And I think I said that this album kind of, promised a conceit or like a big overall metaphor of like show business, and that a lot of the songs comment it, but not all of them directly. And I think my English teacher heart really wants like a true concept album sometimes. And so my overall was an 8 out of 10 for this album. But like I said earlier, that might change. And this ranking will definitely change. When I first heard Mayhem, I had my initial gut reaction, and now that's very different, as I mentioned. So this is my completed spread. I want to thank you so much for joining me, for being here with me as I combine two of the things that I really, really enjoy, my stationery and journaling hobby, and, music, listening to music, thinking about it, lyricism. As I mentioned, or as I explored earlier, I am doing a personal curriculum on poetry, and so I really do like poems, songs, lyrics, the writing. I enjoy exploring the different nuances and layers that poets and songwriters can add, lyricists, to their songs. And I think Taylor Swift is a great lyricist, and so it's a lot of fun to be able to use this notebook in a new way as kind of like my Overflow Journal, as I mentioned, to kind of track those things. Let me know, did you listen to The Life of a Showgirl? What did you think? What are your opinions? What were your favorite songs? Do you agree with my ranking? Completely disagree with my ranking? Do you think that this was a 10 out of 10? She knocked it out of the park? Do you not like it as much as I did? I'd love to hear your thoughts, respectfully, in the comments. I know that Taylor Nation can kind of go hard, but I'm just sharing my humble opinions here. I'd also love to know about if you have a Kakimori dip pen, what is your experience with using shimmer ink with it? I know I kind of chickened out and did not get to use this in this video, but I would love to hear your experience with it. Obviously, I'm going to do some research and some Googling and talking to other people, but if you have experience with it and you would like to tell me, I would really, really appreciate it. I hope that you have enjoyed journaling about this album with me. I hope that you have a great rest of your day, whether it's the full day ahead of you because you're watching this in the morning, or just a couple of hours before you put your head on your pillow. Whatever amount of time you have left, I hope that it's amazing. Thank you so much again, and I hope that you keep exploring the possibilities that some blank pages can bring to you. Until next time, goodbye.